What an absolutely wild weekend in the National Football League to kick off this NFL season. To start the show, why Josh Allen is absolutely one of the three most talented quarterbacks to ever play the game. Not one of the three greatest of all time, that'd be a bit premature, but one of the three most talented to ever play the position, and why these Baltimore Ravens in 2025 simply are not ready to compete for a Super Bowl title. Talk about that. My Steelers with an impressive win over the Jets yesterday, not defensively, but Aaron Rodgers, how about that? 4 touchdown passes. Is this sustainable for Pittsburgh? Talk about that. Also get into the Green Bay Packers. Why are they are the most complete team in the NFC after their dominant performance against the Detroit Lions. Some red flags from Brock Purdy, as well as some encouraging signs. Get into that. Also touch on a number of other topics like the Kansas City Chiefs, why Patrick Mahomes is kind of going to have to carry them for the time being, as well as week one reactions to games around the NFL, predictions for Bears Vikings. We got a loaded, and I do mean loaded, episode of Carvey Up Live. So let's drop the beat, baby. Victory Monday for the Steelers. There goes my hat. Here we go. And we are rolling. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, X, Facebook, and on Instagram. I am Bryson Carver. It's great to be with you. I decided I might as well keep the terrible towel on the shoulder for the time being, as I always do every Victory Monday. Anytime my Pittsburgh Steelers get a big-time W. Talk about that in about 10 to 15 minutes, because I got to say, as someone who was, and still to a degree is, a little bit of a skeptic on the Aaron Rodgers fit in Pittsburgh, pretty darn encouraging signs, to say the very least, in week one. Touch on that. Obviously discuss the Kansas City loss to the Chargers. Give Justin Herbert some love, as well as hold him to his feet to the fire to a degree. And also, Patrick Mahomes going to have to carry that group a little bit. Can't trust the Ravens. Last night showed you that. It is not an overreaction. We have a long list of data to show. Baltimore's not good at closing games like this against great teams like the Buffalo Bills. Let's talk about what else we got. Brock Purdy, a very uneven game for Brock that started fine, middle was bad, ending was pretty good, even though it was a bit risky. Talk about that. Recaps of games around the National Football League. Might as well twirl the terrible towel, and then this time try not to hit my Warriors hat or the Abe Lincoln book back there. I'm trying to incorporate, instead of the Andre Iguodala book, which shout out to Iggy, I try to get books that I'm currently reading. So John Meacham, great book about Abraham Lincoln. So definitely shout out to him there. You guys know I love presidential history. Got a comment from my man Patrick Brown here at the Grid. Happy Monday to you, Patrick. What a great weekend of NFL football. It was fantastic to have the NFL back, and boy, what a game last night. So let's get right to it. But first, look, throughout the vast majority of that football game last night, Ravens-Bills, which for a lot of people was kind of the hyped-up game going into week one, particularly on Sunday's slate of games. Throughout the overwhelming majority, I'm thinking, okay, Josh Allen's a supreme talent quarterback. I like Buffalo's offensive line. Okay, Keon Coleman, you're seeing signs, but the Ravens are a far better football team. Like the Bills are only in this game because Josh Allen is an all-time great at the quarterback position. And then literally the last 3 minutes of the game, it's like, okay, Baltimore collapsed, and we'll get to them in just a second, but Josh Allen is a literal superhuman, superhero, whatever you want to call him, at the quarterback position. He is quite simply one of the three, not greatest would be far too premature, as I said in the open, one of the three most talented players to ever play the quarterback position in the history of the National Football League. First of all, let's show what Josh Allen did over the totality of this football game last night against the Ravens. 4 total touchdowns, no turnovers. I'll touch on that in just a few minutes. 424 total yards, completed 71% of his throws on 46 attempts. That's insane. A passer rating of 112, a QBR 0 to 100 of 78.6. Cannot believe the QBR wasn't higher than it was. And in the fourth quarter, he was nothing short of brilliant. In just the fourth quarter alone, 3 total touchdowns, no turnovers, 269 total yards. For crying out loud, the Bengals had 7 second-half yards yesterday against the Cleveland Browns. Josh Allen by himself had 269 in the fourth quarter, 76.2 completion percentage, and a passer rating of 131.3. It was simply an incredible comeback. And before I get into it, let's have Josh Allen tell you in his own words why Buffalo Bills fans, some of y'all, should not have left the stadium early.
There's just no quitting this team. Welcome to Buffalo. I mean, what a vet, kicking the game-winning field goal in a tough, weird situation you don't see too often. He came in prepared, ready to go. Our team didn't quit. I mean, I think there's people that left the stadium. That's okay. We'll be fine. But have some faith next time.
Definitely have some faith when he's your quarterback. There's no doubt about it. So here's the reason that Josh is at this point. I mean, he is entering the prime of his career. He won his first league MVP last year. There's no reason to believe he can't win another one. He's my pick to an MVP this year, and I'll touch on that. It's some concerning signs for Buffalo, but I'll get to those. Is the fact, I think, in my view, in whatever order you want to put them, I mean, Tom Brady's got a leaning, and this is the GOAT we're talking about. I think he knows a thing or two about quarterback play. Aaron Rodgers, who we'll touch on, and Patrick Mahomes, to me, by my mind's eye, are the two most naturally gifted quarterbacks I've ever seen. The way they can move, make every single throw, any arm angle, arm strength, accuracy. They can make throws in the pocket, out of the pocket, off platform. They don't turn the ball over. Like all time, just in terms of raw talent, Rodgers, Mahomes, those are the two best I've ever seen. Josh Allen's number 3. A guy with this kind of arm strength, and you saw it all game long. Some of those throws to Keon Coleman, the first touchdown to Dalton Kincaid, just throwing that baby on a rope to hit the tight end for a touchdown early on. Just the arm strength. We've known about that with Josh Allen. The fact that he went from, it's unbelievable. He came into the league completing 52% of his throws his rookie year. It's like, gosh, great athlete, great arm, but man, he's erratic. And I'll touch on the erratic part in just a second. Now he's completing 70% of his throws. It's like, okay, he's deadly accurate, on high volume, not turning the football over. But this is the thing with Josh Allen that I've talked about since I started the show, particularly the last few years. Back in 2023, when Buffalo made the playoffs, that was the year they lost to Kansas City at home in the divisional round. That was the Chiefs' last Super Bowl year. My take all season long, when Josh Allen was getting some MVP buzz, I'm like, okay, my thing on Josh is this. The upside, the ceiling is as high as any player at his position that we've ever seen. The floor is bad. He's a little bit up and down. Nick Wright, shout out to Nick Wright on FS1, has done graphics talking about Josh Allen's like a roller coaster, and you can make that case. My thing more than anything was, it's not just the high volume of turnovers, because Josh Allen, up until last season, was the league leader in turnovers since he entered the league in 2018. From 2018 to 2023, Josh Allen was the NFL leader in turnovers. It wasn't just the high volume. It was how those turnovers occurred. See, I'm fine with you taking risks. Quarterbacks are going to throw picks. I would rather you be, fling it all over the yard, taking big chances when you think you got an opportunity to make a play, than you be, God bless him, but Brad Johnson and Captain Checkdown. Like, no one wants to see that. That's not an effective way to run an offense, at least if you've got the talent that Josh Allen has. But it's almost like you couldn't get the upside without getting the just mindless turnovers. Well, last year, the upside wasn't quite as high. It's still pretty darn high. Accounted for, I think, 40 touchdowns total last year. Still great. Still a deserving league MVP in my mind. But the upside wasn't quite as high, but the downside really wasn't there. Whether it's Joe Brady calling plays, the fact that he had a running game with James Cook, the fact that his O-line in Buffalo is really, really good, one of the top units in the league, whatever the case may be, whatever the reason, Josh Allen cut out the mindless mistakes last year. And that more than anything is why I was down with giving him MVP last year. He would have gotten my vote. If this, and I think it is, if this is a precursor for what we're going to see moving forward the rest of this year and the rest of Josh Allen's prime, where he gives you the upside, by the way, against a great Baltimore defense, I wouldn't panic too much on the Ravens defense, at least yet, without the bad plays, oh my gosh, you can win the Super Bowl if you're Buffalo. Not that you couldn't before, but you've got, with this offense at least, as good of a chance as ever. Now, defensively, that's the concern. Defensively is where I said Josh is going to have a Peyton Manning 2013 or a Patrick Mahomes 2018 season where it's your defense is not very good and you're going to have to kind of be not a one-man offense, but be the head of the snake, and the snake's tail is pretty thin. It's not anything to write home about. You're going to have to account for 50 total touchdowns. That was my preseason prediction. That's why I had Josh Allen winning league MVP. And I think last night, to a degree, you saw why I predicted that, but also how the Buffalo Bills are going to have to win football games. But this guy is, again, we'll talk about the Ravens, and the Ravens gave Buffalo multiple opportunities late, and the Bills took advantage of all of them. But just this guy's ability, the running ability, the size, he can make just about every throw in the book now, the arm strength. It's unreal what this guy brings to the table. And listen, folks thought for years, Bills fans used to get on me, oh, you're too hard on Josh. My thing is, no, if he just cuts out the mindless errors, you've got almost a perfect quarterback. And so, man, major love and props to Josh Allen. It's hard to have an MVP frontrunner one weekend. It is. It's hard to have a frontrunner for anything. Super Bowl contenders, whatever. One weekend in the NFL season. But if you were, that's your guy. He was sin from start to finish. And then, please, can we show those fourth quarter stats again? Because the 269 total yards, we've seen quarterbacks have 3 touchdowns in less of a span than 15 minutes. But 269 total yards for Josh is insane stuff. And did you not feel the second Baltimore punted that ball, Buffalo's going to win this game? Josh is going to go right down the field. Keon Coleman, I told y'all, Keon Coleman's going to have a breakout year. Looks like Keon Coleman is breaking out. Keon Coleman's going to separate. Kincaid, you got all these guys. Obviously, he's got a good connection with Shakir. These guys are going to step up. Josh trusts these guys. Josh Palmer, we're going to go down the field, and we're going to get a walk-off field goal by Matt Prater. And so that was an unreal win for the Buffalo Bills. But on the other side for the Baltimore Ravens, because there's a reason I ended that in terms of discussing the fourth down decision. So we'll sort of work our way in reverse here. If you are John Harbaugh, who's been around the NFL for a long time, he's coached nearly 2 decades with the Baltimore Ravens. Had a coaching career that obviously spans longer than that. He's one of the many notable names in the all great and powerful Andy Reid coaching tree, which actually comes from the Mike Holmgren coaching tree, which is pretty much immaculate. But the point is, if you see you've got a 4th down and 3 at your own 38-yard line, Bryson, it's your own 38. I don't care. When that guy's on the other side, when the hottest quarterback on planet Earth's on the other side and is absolutely annihilating your defense in the fourth quarter, you cannot stop him. I'm sorry, he's not touching the ball. The objective, unless it's like 4th down and 15, unless Lamar took a sack on that 3rd down, this drive for the Ravens is either going to end with a turnover on downs or Lamar Jackson taking a knee. That's how this game's going to end. The fact, and I checked, the Ravens were in 3rd and short, or rather 3rd down and 3. I don't know if that classifies as exactly 3rd and short, but 3rd down and 3. I should say, I don't know if it's if the 3 yards and shorter is technically 3rd and short, but we'll you get the idea. On 3rd down and short, 3rd and 3, the Baltimore Ravens were 4 for 4 in the game. You've got Derrick Henry had the disastrous fumble late, but Derrick Henry was a man amongst boys last night. He was as good as we've ever seen Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson, you certainly cannot put that loss on Lamar last night. He led his team to 40 points. He was the play on that previous drive where he's breaking out of the pocket. It looks like he's going to take a 20-yard sack, and then he ends up gaining 20 yards. Lamar's a sensational talent. I don't want our praise of Josh to gloss over how incredible Lamar was last night against the Buffalo Bills. But you've got that guy at quarterback who can use his legs, who's a great thrower of the football. You got Derrick Henry. Use that to your advantage, John Harbaugh. Don't be conservative here. Do we remember this game? 2009. Remember this game? Patriots-Colts in Indianapolis. It's an old Brady versus Manning game. Patriots are up 6 at their own, I think they're at their own 20 or 25-yard line. 4th down and 2 minutes to go. Belichick goes for it. He absolutely made the right call. Peyton Manning is not touching the ball again. I don't care. He's crushed our defense. That guy is not touching the football. Belichick got ripped for it because oftentimes coaches get ripped more for the results than the thinking that they had going in, which I usually defend them on. Peyton's not touching the ball. Josh Allen can't touch the ball. Heck, remember 4 years ago, the Ravens had a 4th down and short up by a point in the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes had annihilated their defense, and John Harbaugh was like, yeah, Pat's not touching the ball. Lamar, go for it, and Lamar got it, and the Ravens won. So why he decided to go conservative in this spot is beyond me. And it's a growing, just add it to the pile of disturbing trends for the Baltimore Ravens as of late. We're going to show you 3 graphics that are a huge indictment on John Harbaugh. Here's the first one. John Harbaugh. He has blown 17 double-digit second-half leads. That is the most by any coach since 1991. Not great. Let's keep going. Since 2021, the Ravens have lost 8 games in which they had a win probability of 90%. That's 3 more than the next closest team. 8 games they've lost, the Ravens, since 2021, win probability of 90%. Last night, folks, on the 4th down, when they were up by 15 points, Buffalo had 4th down the red zone on the tip ball that Keon Coleman caught. They had a 98.9% chance to win. And they lost, of course, as we all know. Last graphic. Since 2022, the Baltimore Ravens have lost 6 games in which they had a 2-score lead that leads the National Football League. Here's what I will say. That, listen, as I always joke on this show all the time, I kind of half joke. I say half jokingly because it is kind of true. The 2 biggest overreaction Mondays in the NFL every year without fail. Monday after week 1, Monday after the Super Bowl. We book in this, baby. Because early on, it's the only game we've seen any of these teams play. So we overreact. This is who this team is. This is who this player is. He's no good. He's going to win MVP. They're going to win the Super Bowl. It's a weekend. Chill out. And then, of course, after the Super Bowl's over, it's, oh my gosh, losing teams, coach stinks, fire him, quarterback's overrated, and the team that wins is going to win the next 5 championships. The 2 biggest overreaction Mondays in the NFL, week 1 and Super Bowl. This is not an overreaction. I am staking my claim to it today. Hold me to it. I am guaranteeing the Baltimore Ravens will not win the Super Bowl in 2025. Guaranteeing it. Because if this is in you, if this has been in you for a half decade, or in the case of John Harbaugh, his whole coaching career with the Ravens, and John Harbaugh's a good coach, but he's not good situationally, and that's big. If this is in you somehow, why in God's name would I trust you? Forget to beat Mahomes and the Chiefs, who we know are situationally brilliant in the playoffs. How in God's name do I trust you to beat the Bills? You lost a playoff game to them because Lamar had a bad first half and Mark Andrews had some drops and a fumble in the second half. And Josh crushed you, by the way. And then last night, 15-point lead under 4 minutes to go. And you play conservative. And you, again, Josh torches you. You say, hey, let's give the ball to him this time, my defense is going to make a stop on the league MVP from a season ago. What are you doing? Listen, this doesn't mean me saying the Ravens aren't going to win the Super Bowl is not me saying they're not going to have a great year. I still think they are a 12-5 football team. You saw over the course of the game yesterday, you can make a very compelling case. That is the most talented roster in professional football. That quarterback who was A++ last night, that running back who A- because of the huge fumble, but Derrick Henry was a man amongst boys. Against the Buffalo Bills. The receiving core, DeAndre Hopkins got a touchdown. There was some controversy with what Lamar did, whatever. But DeAndre Hopkins got a touchdown. Zay Flowers is talented. But if you are capable, I've got the numbers right here. If you are a Baltimore Ravens team that is capable of losing a game when trailing by 15 points in the final 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, where coming into Sunday, teams' records in that spot, up 15, under 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. You want to know what the record is of teams in the league coming into Sunday? 2,312-3. Make that 4. The Ravens are the 4th team to blow a situation like that. They are also the first team to ever lose a game, scoring 40 points, rushing for 235 yards. First team to ever lose a game in those circumstances. If that is somewhere in your bones, if that is in your soul, if you are capable of doing that, I can't trust you. How am I going to trust you in 4 playoff games? Because that's what you're going to have to do. You lost any chance you had at getting home field advantage in the playoffs. That's gone now. It's going to be Buffalo. It's going to be maybe a Kansas City. I think the Chiefs will get back on their feet. You could think about a team like, who knows, maybe the Chargers steal the division or Denver. Plenty of teams will do it. It will not be the Baltimore Ravens. So that is, I'm here to tell you, I'm not saying they are not a good team, not saying they're not a playoff team, not even saying they can't win a playoff game or the division. That team ain't winning the Super Bowl if that is in them. And I think we could very well see if we see another terrible loss in the postseason, a close loss. I mean, think about the loss to the Chiefs in the AFC title game 2 years ago, where they just abandoned the run completely. It's a 1-score game all throughout. Chiefs aren't doing anything offensively. And you say, yeah, that run game has gotten us here. Screw it. Let's throw it all over the yard and be who we're not. Unbelievable stuff. If that's in you, forget about it. Some comments by Patrick Brown. This was a resemblance of the cross-sport example. I like it. This was a resemblance of the 2013 NBA Finals Game 6. Miami was down double digits going to the fourth quarter, and the fans left. They did. Once LeBron led the comeback, fans tried to get back in. Yeah, listen, man. Do not leave the stadium unless it's an impossibility that the team can win a game. There literally just is not enough time. You can leave a baseball game if your team is down 10 in the ninth. Like, it's over. You can leave a football game if your team is down 17 with a minute and a half to go. It's over. It's a wrap. Any other circumstance other than that, keep your butt in that seat, especially when you've got an all-time talent like Josh Allen. Patrick, the turning point of this game, the missed extra point and King Henry's fumble flipped the momentum. After that, all hands were on deck. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And it was, listen, I feel I hesitate to really get on Derrick Henry because of how great he was. Like, the Ravens don't build that lead. The Ravens don't score 40 points if Derrick Henry is not just, peak Derrick Henry. He's throwing guys off of him. He's running for these long touchdowns. A guy, as I've always said, a guy that big should not be able to move that fast. It's a lion with the speed of a cheetah. It's insane stuff what Derrick Henry shows. Again, 18 carries for $168. He averaged 9 yards a clip. Like, come on. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve blame for the fumble. Of course he does. You can't fumble in that spot when you're trying to eat clock and not put the ball back in the hands of Josh Allen. But it was definitely the turning point in the game, though, Patrick. You are 100% correct about that. Okay, so we got to stay in the AFC North because what we saw yesterday at MetLife Stadium, the Meadowlands. But first of all, it is a black and yellow victory Monday for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Yes, indeed. So the Steelers won. My Steelers won 34-32. Who in the world thought that would be the final score coming in? Listen, I picked the Steelers to win by 2. I took the Jets plus 2.5. Did not think it would play out the way that it did. But nonetheless, Steelers get the W 34-32. Can we show Aaron Rodgers' numbers? Because there's no other way around it. He was fantastic. For all my critiques of Aaron, for at least this one day, he was sensational. 4 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, 244 yards throwing through the air, 73% completion, a passer rating of 136.7. He's always been the passer rating king, and a QBR of 62.7. So here's the thing that I was most impressed with Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because one thing I saw happen on offense, literally the first play from scrimmage for the Steelers offense and going forward the rest of the game, it's like you throw your hands up, you're like, yep, offensive line is just as bad as I thought. Yep, it's Mike Tomlin. He can't develop O-lines, hasn't been able to for about a decade. They've blown some draft picks. Dan Moore's gone. He's with the Tennessee Titans now. Broderick Jones is giving up 3 sacks. He was a total bust. This is not working whatsoever for Pittsburgh. So what did Arthur Smith do? Get the ball out of your hands quick, fast throws. Look at the passing chart. This is from NFL Next Gen Stats. Look at the passing chart for Aaron Rodgers in this game. So you see the completions, touchdown passes, and completions, the whole bit. What do you notice about this? 1 pass, which would be considered by the NFL a deep ball. 20 or more yards, the NFL considers a deep ball. Aaron Rodgers just threw 1 of those. Why? Well, because he wouldn't have had time to throw more than that, because the Quinnen Williams of the world and McDonald's would have gotten in the backfield and made his day terrible, would have made his return to MetLife miserable. So Arthur Smith says, going to go play action, quick throws, Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, DK Metcalf, get the ball out of your hands fast. We know Aaron, listen, I've always said this. Aaron's mobility is just about shot at this point. He's 41 years old, 2 years removed from an Achilles surgery. He can't move the way he used to. That's what made him so special, is the ability to move out of the pocket and make the throws that we saw him make every single Sunday in Green Bay. Still got a fast as release. You saw on the touchdown throw to Ben Skronik. You saw it definitely on the touchdown after the fumble on the kick return that really got the Steelers back in it by Calvin Austin, the touchdown to Calvin Austin. Like this, get the ball out of your hands fast. That's going to have to be how the Steelers are able to be successful offensively. If this is going to be, and listen, here was maybe where I fell short the most in my analysis a week in with the Steelers offense from a schematic standpoint, because I still don't think they can really run the football. I don't know if I trust Jalen Warren behind that O-line, Kenneth Gainwell, some of the guys, Caleb Johnson, who they drafted out of Iowa. Don't know if I trust these guys behind an offensive line that is just terrible. First play of the game, Rodgers gets sacked. Like, it's a bad O-line. If Arthur Smith is able to dial up plays, if the Steelers are able to play ahead of the sticks and say, hey, let's put ourselves, if it's 1st and 10, let's make it 2nd and 5. 2nd and 5, let's get a first down, or let's have a 3rd and short. The Steelers are not an offense that is built to go 2nd and 11, because then Aaron's going to have to drop back. Aaron can't move anymore. Aaron is, at this stage, not as great of a deep thrower as he used to be. He's not going to, even if he was, he really wouldn't be able to because of the offensive line struggles. They're going to have to play ahead of schedule on a consistent basis. This offense clearly has limitations, and it all starts with the 5 men up front. It all starts with those guys, particularly Broderick Jones, who is just a disaster. I can't believe that he hasn't been benched by this point. But Aaron, to his credit, quick release, got the ball out quick. Aaron still throws a gorgeous football. Now, is this sustainable? I don't know. What's going to happen when the great defensive coordinators, in 3 weeks, they go to Dublin, Ireland to play the Minnesota Vikings. Brian Flores is the best or second best defensive coordinator in football. He's seen Aaron Rodgers before. He knows how to game plan against him. How does he game plan against Aaron Rodgers in that spot? Because last year, he gave him fits. Aaron threw 3 picks against the Minnesota Vikings defense. So how are the great defensive coordinators as the season goes on going to adjust? And is Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers going to be able to adjust? That's the question. But if there's one thing that you have to feel good about if you're a Steelers fan, is that, listen, it's the most expensive defense in the NFL. No team, and I've lamented this, because I think in today's modern NFL, you can't spend as much money on defense as you could previously because the offense is just simply more important, is the most expensive defense in the NFL. Cam Hayward, who, got a raise, shout out to him. TJ Watt, Jalen Ramsey, who had made the hit on Garrett Wilson to end the game. Shout out to Jalen Ramsey, who played well yesterday, to his credit. All of these guys, Patrick Queen and others, you hope, knock on wood, I'm pretty sure this is the case, but who knows? We got to see how the season plays out. You hope that the Pittsburgh Steelers won with their worst defensive performance. And the fact of the matter is this, we're going to show you a bad Mike Tomlin graphic. They don't win games like this very often. We can show you the numbers. Mike Tomlin, when the Steelers give up 30 or more points, is 7-41. Now, for the record, it's hard to win in the NFL when you give up 30 or more points. But a lot of those years with Big Ben and Antonio Brown and some of those great Steelers offenses back in the days, and Mike Wallace and Hines Ward, Santonio Holmes, all those guys, some of the great running backs like Le'Veon Bell. Steelers had some stacked offenses. 7-41 when they gave up 30 or more points. Even worse, since the great Big Ben Roethlisberger retired, 1-8 in games in which they give up 30 or more points. 1-18 since that 2017 playoff loss to the Jaguars, in which they gave up 45 points to Blake Bortles and the Duval Jags. So they do not win games like this very often. So the fact they were is a testament to Arthur Smith and a testament to Aaron Rodgers. If the strategy in Pittsburgh is, Aaron, kind of have to be a little bit of a game manager. Kind of dink, dunk. It's very much about timing. Now, again, if there's not, I don't necessarily trust it because the Jets secondary isn't very good. If DK Metcalf isn't open, do I trust Ben Skronik and Jonnu Smith, who's a good player, by the way, or Calvin Austin to consistently separate? I don't know. I got to see a lot more. They got a great Seahawks defense coming up next week in Pittsburgh. That's going to tell us a lot. Minnesota in a few weeks after that, that's going to say even more, especially in Dublin, Ireland, of all places. Like that is going to be kind of the litmus test for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. But if Arthur Smith is saying, Aaron, we're going to play you in a little bit of a game manager type role. Not going to have to throw a ton of deep balls. Not going to have to throw for 300 yards a game, but be efficient, get the ball out quick, because this offensive line cannot protect you long enough, then that could work. Now, with that being said, with all of that being said, nothing but credit to Aaron Rodgers. Before I even say what I'm about to say next, let's go in and hear what Aaron had to say, because this was kind of a revenge game for him coming back to MetLife against the Jets. It didn't go very well. A lot of that was his fault, but whatever the case may be, it ended ugly, and there was a bit of unprofessionalism. I love Aaron Glenn, but a bit of unprofessionalism toward Aaron Rodgers. This is what he had to say about beating his former team.
You spoke about the meeting with Aaron Glenn on McAfee a few months ago. Beating him, is there significance in that, since he basically told you to your face that he didn't think you were right for that team?
Yes, that's what he did.
So there's significance in beating him for you?
I was happy to beat everybody associated with the Jets. It was nice to win, especially, hearing some of the cat calls out there and the boo birds. I'm not sensitive about that. I expected that, kind of like that. But there were probably people in the organization didn't think I could play anymore. So it was nice to remind those people that I still can.
He's got every right to run a victory lap. He does. As critical as I've been of him, and I maintain, this is my biggest knock on Aaron. I certainly maintain this. It's easy for Aaron. I said, actually literally said this on Friday's show, and it was when I was giving Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts, who had just about nothing go their way. Just their leadership was off the charts. Their demeanor didn't change, all of it. Aaron Rodgers' leadership is conditional. If things are going well, if the Steelers' offense is clicking, he's in a good mood. I mean, get salty towards the Jets, but again, there's a bit of that. Listen, the Jets' tenure for Aaron Rodgers, I've documented it many, many times on the show. He knew he could manipulate that franchise. He knew they were desperate. Let's get the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL, Nathaniel Hackett, just because he's my buddy, into the building. Let's get Randall Cobb, who's washed. Let's get, and I think they had a backup offensive lineman from Green Bay. Like that was going to do anything. Alan Lazard, who's Not very good. Let's add Tim Boyle, who literally does not belong in the NFL. Let's add all these guys because they're my buddies. It works. Let's add Devontae Adams, who can play, but it wasn't the best fit. Garrett Wilson didn't like it. Understandably so. It probably cost him some money, potentially, at least long term. He did end up getting paid in the offseason. Maybe would have gotten more as the true number one receiver. Aaron deserves, to me, the bulk of the blame, particularly for last season. With that being said, Aaron Glenn was not with the Jets. I love Aaron Glenn. He was not with the Jets when all of that happened. Aaron Glenn could have easily called Aaron Rodgers on the phone, said, hey, we're going in a different direction. Wish you the best. All of that. Quick 5-minute phone call. Both sides move on. Didn't have to make the man fly all the way out to Jersey and tell him, because Aaron lives in Malibu, and tell him, yeah, we're done. Your time in New York's over. Didn't have to make him fly out all the way to do that. A phone call would have sufficed. It's kind of like the old saying, this meeting could have been an email. That's kind of what that was. That meeting could have been a phone call. And so, I get Aaron being salty for that. I do. I defend him on that. Do I trust that he will be a great leader moving forward? Of course I don't. I'm not going to be blindsided or gaslit after one game. But if Arthur Smith continues to call good games, get the ball to your hands quick, an efficient style of offense, let's show that passing chart one more time. Not a lot of deep shots because the Steelers really don't have the luxury, unfortunately, because of the limitations at receiver outside of Metcalf, and especially due to the limitations at the O-line. They really don't have the luxury to be able to run an offense in which maybe a prime Aaron Rodgers would excel in. But for a week, Aaron gets to have a victory lap. He does. He absolutely deserves that. Got a few. Now, this is not true. Alfred Parsons Jr. is going to be on Carving It Up, by the way, on Wednesday. Can't wait to have him on. The Carve Master, about to be the biggest Rodgers apologist on the planet. No chance. That is not going to happen. I can assure you that, Alfred. He said he was at the game, I assume. He said, Rodgers stared a hole through me yesterday. He probably stared a hole through a lot of Jets fans and media and coaches. And he actually talked after the game. He was tight with a lot of the players. Rodgers threw 4 touchdowns and no turnovers just for you, Bryson. If for a game, he shut me up for a game. Now, long term, it's a long season. Every single team, the Bills were great yesterday, at least offensively. And the Packers were impressive. Even the Packers, who we'll get to after the break, even the Packers are going to have some bumps and bruises. There's ebbs and flows. It's a long NFL season, 17 games. There's injuries. There's games that don't go your way. Moments don't go your way. Calls, injuries. Stuff is going to go against all 32 teams in the league all season long. How does Aaron handle those situations? Because I really don't trust that when those events take place. Next week, Alfred says, revenge game for DK in Seattle. That game's not in Seattle. They're playing the Seahawks, but nonetheless, yes, they did trade him. DK can only hurt Seattle if Rodgers can get him the ball. Speaking of DK, by the way, before I get to DK, can we just give love to Chris freaking Boswell? I mean, listen, who not only bailed out, he didn't bail out the Steelers offense with that 60-yard bomb field goal. He bailed out Mike Tomlin. And again, great coach, no losing seasons. Again, that stat is kind of meaningless, but okay, congratulations on not being bad, I guess. I've always said this. It does not get enough play out there. Tomlin's not very good with the clock. He's not bad. He's not Mike McCarthy or Brandon. He's not that. He's not good managing the clock. And you saw that in the last drive, or before the kneel downs, obviously. The last drive of the game for Pittsburgh. I want to make sure I get this right. So the Steelers have 2 timeouts coming out of the 2-minute warning. Rodgers throws a pass to Jonnu Smith, negative 2-yard gain. The clock bleeds all the way down to 112. The clock bleeds down all the way to 112. Then you call your timeout. So now you have 1 timeout left. If you don't get the first down, and what was it, 3rd and 11? Steelers aren't converting on 3rd and 11. Now with that O-line, if you don't convert on 3rd down and 11, now Boswell has to hit a bomb or you lose. Whereas at least if you run a play quick, or had you just called the timeout earlier, chances of you winning are slim, but you could get the ball back. Hey, Aaron Rodgers is the Hail Mary master. That's one thing he still has. We saw it even last year. So Tomlin botched the clock. Botched it, per usual. Boswell bailed him out. So that was a gangster kick. Right down Broadway. It was unbelievable. Alfred. Bad calls by Aaron Glenn and a special teams fumble get to the Steelers the game. The fumble was massive. That was the turning point in the game. I think that was Xavier Gibson who coughed it up, and I think it was it Skronik? No, it was I think it was Kenneth Gainwell, ironically, who recovered that kick, or that fumble rather. But that was devastating. That kind of turned because the Aaron threw the touchdown to Calvin Austin the very next play. And yeah, the call that Alfred's referring to, because we talked after the game, where the Jets score a touchdown. I believe it's 9-7. I think it's 9-7 at this point. And there's a penalty on Pittsburgh, missed extra point by Nick Folk, who was bad yesterday, by the way. And the Jets and Aaron Glenn decide to go for 2 from the 1-yard line because of the penalty on Pittsburgh. The only justification for me is Folk's not a very good kicker. I mean, at that point, though, do you trust him to make a 28-yard extra point? Like, I probably would, but if Aaron Glenn knows better than me, if he doesn't, I understand that, but still, it certainly didn't work out well for the Jets, that's for sure. And yeah, the fumble was gigantic. That completely turned the momentum of the game. Listen, good win for the Steelers. Got a tough game against Seattle next week. Like, the Raiders proved me wrong on this yesterday, but these West Coast teams going on the East Coast to play these 1 o'clock Eastern kickoffs, that is tough, especially for Seattle coming off a devastating loss. We'll get to that game later on the show against the San Francisco 49ers, but that defense came to play. Mike McDonald's a really, really smart defensive coach, so I could see that being a low-scoring game in Pittsburgh next week. What's the line for that? 2.5? Steelers minus 2.5. That feels fair. That feels about right. All right, be back after a 1-minute break, but when we come back, Green Bay Packers, what a showing against the Detroit Lions. Some red flags for the Lions I wanted to point out. Y'all know I'm a Dan Campbell guy, but some red flags I got to point out. And as for Green Bay, you'll hear what I have to say in just a second, because it's pretty praiseworthy. Talk about that in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody tuning in, as always, on what is the first of what will be many jam-packed Monday reaction shows. I'm telling you, the NFL is the soap opera that always delivers. It just does. I mean, last night obviously is a prime example, but even with that, interesting. This just broke. Schefter literally just broke a second ago. This feels like do we deserve the breaking news thing for this? Might as well get the breaking news. It's not like gigantic, but it's something, that's for certain. Get the breaking news color because I want to make this feel somewhat big. So breaking news, this just coming in on Carving It Up. Adam Schefter tweets that Brock Purdy has a left shoulder and toe injury that make him uncertain for Sunday's game in New Orleans. Kyle Shanahan said the team will see how the practice week goes. If Purdy cannot play, 49ers backup Mac Jones would be in line to start. Schefter literally just tweeted that a minute ago. It's funny, I was going to talk about Brock Purdy, still am, but now with that added context, I'm kind of even more impressed by what I saw from him against San Francisco if he was battling, a toe injury and a shoulder injury. So it's bad news for San Francisco because that's a team that just consistently gets beat up over the course of a season. And I love Kyle Shanahan, but they play a very physical brand of football. And listen, if Mac Jones, Alfred says return of the Mac, listen, Mac Jones is, I think, if anyone who's watched this show for any length of time, before the show was I think we're on YouTube by this point. No, actually, we were not on YouTube by this point. I remember when Alabama won the national championship in 2021 to beat Ohio State with Mac Jones. And that 2020 Bama team sneakily was stacked. But I remember there was some draft experts saying, like, yeah, he might actually be a first-round pick. And I came on my show, I'm like, he's fine, but there's a reason they gave the Heisman Trophy to his receiver. The guy who would not have the ball if not for the quarterback. That tells you everything you need to know. Noodle arm, cannot move at all. By the way, we saw what happened in New England in terms of leadership. He's a dirty player. Look, if Kyle Shanahan, listen, it's kind of like when Matt LaFleur won a few games with Malik Willis. I was at one of those games in Nashville last year, was incredibly impressed. It's like if Matt LaFleur can win games with Malik Willis, I don't know what there is to say. if Kyle Shanahan can win games, or a game at least, I know the Saints are terrible. They fought the Cardinals to their credit, had a good defensive second half. But if they can go to New Orleans and win with Mac Jones, man, I might have underrated Kyle Shanahan. And I tend to be a pretty big fan of his. So that's not great news for San Francisco. I'll talk about Brock Purdy later in the show. But first, I do want to talk about a dominant performance by the Green Bay Packers against the Detroit Lions. 27-13 is your final. It was not close. The kid Tesla for Detroit made a crazy one-handed catch that made the score look a little bit more respectable. Detroit finally put together a drive. I'll talk about the Lions side of this in just a second. But for Green Bay, is that not just about everything you could have hoped for to open the season on both sides of the football? First of all, offensively, first drive, Jordan Love, boom, 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 right down the field, touchdown. Jaden Reed caught a touchdown, a few drives after that on a 2-play scoring drives for Green Bay. Like, that is the Jordan Love, and this is why, before the Micah Parsons trade, I had Green Bay winning the NFC North, I thought you were going to see a Jordan Love that was reminiscent of the guy that we saw at the end of 2023 when he had a passer rating of 112 over the final, I think it was 8 or 9 games, and again, the blowout win over Dallas when he was basically perfect. I thought we were going to see that Jordan Love this year, not the guy who, it's not an excuse, it is a reason. He was not healthy a season ago. Screwed up his knee against Philadelphia in week 1, came back a little too early in week 4. A few weeks after that, got hurt again against the Jacksonville Jaguars, was never quite himself all season long, and the offense never found the rhythm that it found at the end of 2023. Well, now he's in a full offseason. Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft, great O-line, great running game with Josh Jacobs, 9 straight games for a touchdown for him, by the way. And you have Matthew Golden, who didn't have a huge game by any stretch of the imagination yesterday, but you're going to see him get more involved as time goes on. And you got a brilliant offensive coach in Matt LaFleur. Jordan Love, again, you look at the numbers for him yesterday. And again, this is why I said on Friday's show, I said when I was talking about Dak Prescott, in the classic Bill Maher sense, new rule. You are not allowed to have an opinion about a game you did not watch. The reason I said that is because Dak's box score wasn't that impressive against Philly. His play on the field, if you actually watch the game, was tremendous. The same can be said about Jordan Love. Now, his box score, he had a passer rating of 128, a QBR of 92, but 16 for 22, a $188, 2 touchdowns. What Matt LaFleur did in this game yesterday was, my defense is balling. Micah Parsons, literally first snap of the game, is giving Jared Goff hell in the pocket. Jordan Love's balling. We're up 17-3. Let's just back off just a little bit. They can't beat us as long if we play conservative the rest of the way that our defense is playing. Let's get out of here with the divisional win. It's what Ryan Day did against Texas a couple of weeks ago. Oh, man, my defense is balling. Arch Manning on the other side doesn't have it. Let's just rely on the running game, hit a couple of big plays, and go home with the W. Sometimes you got to do that in the NFL. Sometimes, especially early in the season, you don't want to unveil your entire playbook. You don't want to show every defensive coordinator in football or on your schedule what you're capable of doing. If you've mostly gotten the job done, if you feel comfortable with what you're doing, ride that offensive line, Josh Jacobs, and bleed the clock. And that's what Green Bay did yesterday. But I thought Jordan Love early on was awesome. I thought he was as in that short of a span. If you take out Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson last night, that was about as elite quarterback plays you saw from anybody yesterday. So airing it out, accuracy, showed the real arm strength, showed a real whip, throwing the ball to the sidelines, to Golden, to Reed. The throw to Reed for a touchdown was just could not have put it more in the breadbasket. And so Green Bay offensively was excellent. Defensively, Micah Parsons barely played. I don't say he barely played. He was certainly on a snap count. The back was bothering him, and it was a question when we woke up Friday morning. It was a question whether Micah Parsons would even play at all. He's new to Green Bay. He's only been there for a week. The back injury's been bothering him. Schefter reported that he had to get epidural shots. Like, he was not 100%, probably still isn't 100%. And the whole game. Like, that is the mantra for Micah Parsons, what makes him a great player. Is he good stopping the run? No, he's not. And this narrative, that's just been a recent hit campaign by the Cowboys. There's been a lot of hit pieces by folks in Dallas media that they've gotten from the Jones family that are completely unfair to Micah. That isn't. I have said on this show for some time, Micah is not good stopping the run. With that being said, Micah's greatness isn't in the sack category per se, although he is great. He had 12.5 sacks last year, missing 4 games. That tells you all you need to know. It's that pressures. He leads the league by a mile since coming into the NFL in 2021. The first play of the game, he's rushing Jared Goff. He ended up getting a sack on Jared Goff late. He's forcing some quick throws. The interception Jared Goff threw in the red zone in the first half, Micah Parsons was in the pocket. Like, that's the speed, the strength, and again, doing it against a really, really good Detroit Lions offensive line with Penei Sewell, one of the top tackles in the league. That's been one of my knocks on Micah is, man, his production isn't quite what it is against the elite tackles. Well, yesterday it was. Penei Sewell's pretty elite, consistently got pressure on the quarterback, and that's, again, Green Bay already had a really good defense. Smart defensive coordinator's done a great job there in year 2, but you had Rashawn Gary. The pass rush wasn't quite there, but you trusted the secondary. Xavier McKinney, you got some dudes. Van Ness, by the way, who there were some concerns about, played well for Green Bay. The talent was there. You were top 5 and top 6 in yards allowed and in points allowed a season ago. You were really good. And now you had that guy. Now you had a game wrecker to that side. Now you go to a new level. I'm here to tell you today, I'm not saying Green Bay's not my pick to win the NFC. That was Philadelphia. I'm maintaining that. We're a week into the season. But Green Bay, to me, is the most complete team in the NFC, and that really, really matters. For the record, that's exactly what I said about Philadelphia in December. I think they had just beat my Steelers. I came on my show the next day. I said, I don't know if Philly's the best team. They're in the discussion. They're certainly the most complete team because at that time a year ago in Philadelphia, there really wasn't a weakness. Find the weakness in Green Bay. O-line's great. Quarterback, you're going to see it this year. Elite. Run game's excellent. Receiving core is stacked. And the defense, which is already good, added this guy named Micah Parsons who played limited snaps and was still awesome and still wreaked havoc on Detroit all afternoon. So if you're a Packers fan, you've got to be feeling amazing. Got a short week. Got the Washington Commanders coming to Lambeau on Thursday night. That's going to be a really fun game to watch. It's going to be interesting to see how Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury game plan for Parsons. You have to imagine we'll get more of a workload. But if you're a Packers fan, you've got to feel absolutely ecstatic about what you saw in that game last night or yesterday afternoon against the Detroit Lions. For Detroit, again, anybody who's watched this show for any length of time know I am as big of a Dan Campbell Detroit Lions culture fan as there is. I've joked like the Steelers are my favorite team and Detroit's number 2, which Detroit actually does play Pittsburgh this year. But unless those two teams are playing, I'm rooting for Detroit pretty much anytime they take the field. Here's the thing Lions fans need to be concerned about. It's not, Jared Goff played poorly. It's not that coming into that last drive, he had like 160-ish yards passing. It's not just the fact that they didn't run the football well. Green Bay's going to do that to a lot of teams this year. It's the fact that they actually, at points, move the ball pretty well. I mean, I'm looking at the team stats right now. Total yards, they only had 20 fewer total yards than Green Bay. Now, that part of that is because Green Bay played conservative in the second half because they knew Detroit wasn't going to run them down the way that defense was playing. But some of that is, no, they're talented offensively, and they didn't move the ball. They had a 9-minute drive in the first half, kept converting on third downs. Where could they not get it done? The red zone. Why does that matter? Well, obviously, you don't want to settle for field goals. You want to get in the end zone. But the red zone is what separates the regular run-of-the-mill offensive coaches from the elite ones. Well, Detroit, as we know, had probably the best offensive coordinator in football for the last 3 years in Ben Johnson. Well, Ben Johnson's in Chicago now. We're going to see what he does with Caleb Williams against Brian Flores and the Vikings. My prediction for that game at the end of the show is that when you're in the red zone, it's condensed field, not a lot of room to work with. You have to scheme guys open. Andy Reid is the best I've ever seen at this. Remember that Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles where Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, for crying out loud, are just open by 8 yards. I mean, it's just all by themselves, and Mahomes can just lob it up there to him. That's Andy Reid. That's schematics. You saw it yesterday. Liam Cohen scheming, again, tight in the red zone. So let's be creative. Let's get the blocking scheme where we need it. Brian Thomas Jr. is going to run it in for a touchdown on a reverse. Play calling in the red zone is critical, and Detroit kind of looked discombobulated down there. Some of that's a credit to Green Bay. Green Bay has a great DC. Micah Parsons, great secondary, the whole bit. And some of that didn't have quite the creativity that you're used to in Detroit. So that's going to have to be something they correct moving forward. Next week, the Lions have the Bears. And by the way, that's Dennis Allen as the defensive coordinator in Chicago. Short week. That game is in Detroit. Lions are a 4.5-point favorite. I think they'll be fine the rest of the year. I still think they're going to be a playoff team. I still maintain my belief in that regard in the Lions. But the play calling and just the stiffness of their offense in the red zone was concerning. They had to settle for 2 field goals, Goff threw a pick, and then the last time got in the red zone, Tesla obviously made the circus catch that made the score a little bit closer. But 4 trips, you only come up with with 13 points, that's not going to beat a team as good as Green Bay. So little bit of a concern for the Detroit Lions. Have to be a little bit concerned in that regard. But if you're a Packers fan, I don't know how you could feel better. I mean, there is a legitimate case Green Bay is the best team in football today. We'll see where I have them on Bryce's best 10 on Wednesday. I will certainly say this, most complete team in the NFC. Can't argue that. Patrick Brown, he's talking about the Brock Purdy news. Return of the Whack, talking about Mac Jones. He calls him Whack Jones. I say that I'm still a little bit jealous that Patrick came up with that before me. But nonetheless, return of the Whack could really happen in week 2. It indeed could. It indeed could. And we'll talk about the 49ers in just a second. Schefter, by the way, this is also in from Schefter with the 49ers. Oh, boy. Can we get the breaking news tab back up there? Boy, the news that keeps coming in for San Francisco, this just makes that win over Seattle all the more important. The fact that they were able to get out of there with the win. Because according to Adam Schefter, 49ers Pro Bowl tight end George Kittle is expected to be sidelined multiple weeks with a hamstring injury. I mean, Kittle looks great early and then left the game. So he's out multiple weeks. And according to Schefter, also the MRI on 49ers receiver Jawan Jennings' shoulder came back clean, and the team still is waiting on a CT scan. But for now, it sounds as if Jennings avoided the worst. So shout out to Jawan Jennings, Tennessee guy. Actually made the game-winning catch on a Hail Mary by Josh Dobbs in Tennessee's last win against Georgia. That matters because Tennessee plays Georgia this week. You'll hear more about that in the Volview on Friday. I won't get into it much today. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. That does kind of alter my Brock Purdy take. Listen, when you present it with new information, you got to adjust. Like that it is what it is. So yeah, I'll definitely talk about the 49ers in about 10 minutes or so. The game that's kind of getting forgotten today is because it was college football, all the crazy upsets. How about Florida going down? How great was that, Vol Nation? Seeing USF coached by Alex Golish, former Vols offensive coordinator, by the way, going into Gainesville and taking it to the Gators. Loved every second of it. As an unbiased fan, of course, as a neutral observer, of course. It was beautiful to see. But SMU got beat. Who else? Clemson had a bad performance against Troy. Crazy weekend in college football, no question about it. So you had those games. You had obviously a wild day, start to finish in the NFL yesterday, and we kind of just forgot the Chiefs and Chargers played in Brazil on Friday in what was a highly entertaining game. The Chargers win that one 27-21. I'll get to Kansas City in just a second because I tend to have this tendency to go with, starting with the winners. Justin Herbert was simply sensational. We can show you his numbers. He was nothing short of phenomenal against the Chiefs. 3 pass touchdowns, no turnovers, 318 passing yards, 73.5% completion, a passer rating of 131.7, and a QBR 0 to 100 of 88.9. The guy was money with his arm. And of course, in the end, 3rd down and 14, when it looks like, holy crap, Mahomes is about to get the ball back, and he runs for the first down, and Chris Jones making a really crucial error going inside, coming off the edge, as opposed to keeping Justin Herbert contained the outside with no help on the right side of the field. But here's the thing with Justin Herbert, and I've said this for a long time. Back in 2020, which was the first draft I ever talked about on Carving It Up, 5.5 years ago, can't believe it's been that long. But a stacked class that we now know includes, holy crap, Burrow, Tua, who wasn't very good yesterday, Herbert, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts. That, looking back, that 2020 class was as good as we've seen in the last 15, 20 years or so. I thought Herbert was the best talent in that draft, even over Joe Burrow. I thought the arm strength, I thought the size, I thought I've always said Justin Herbert's mobility is crazy underrated. The fact of the matter is, folks, you've got to be able to move. Jared Goff is the last of a dying breed. CJ Stroud can move. It's not really a strength of his. And the Texans O-line's bad. We'll get to them later. But in today's NFL, with the athletes coming around the edge, you have to be able to be mobile as a quarterback. And Justin Herbert is. We saw against Wisconsin, the Rose Bowl at Oregon. We've seen it at the time, for the last 6 years with the Chargers. He can move. He's got the arm strength. He's got every single measurable that you could possibly want in a franchise quarterback. By season's end, we need to have something to show for it. We do. No MVP finishes or anything close to it. 2 playoff appearances, 2 playoff losses in which he was, in the first one, pretty good. It was mostly the Chargers defense that built them a 27-0 lead over Trevor Lawrence and the Jags, and they end up losing the football game 31-30. Now you say, well, the Chargers defense is bad and Brandon Staley's bad. Brandon Staley's very bad. We know this. But Justin Herbert got the ball over and over and over, and he produced a field goal in the second half. Like, a lot of that falls on him. He was the quarterback of a team that lost a 27-0 lead. We would be crushing Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. We'd be crushing Jaden Daniels. We would be ripping Jalen Hurts. We would be annihilating Dak Prescott. There's no energy towards Justin Herbert for that. And then the second playoff game was even worse. You go into Houston against a Texans team that is, limping across the finish line, quite literally. Their team is decimated by injury. The O-line's bad. CJ isn't playing that well in large part because of the O-line struggles in the second half of the year. You are a road favorite in Houston. Equal and exceed your season total in picks. Can't work. Can't happen. You say, well, the receiving core is not good. Wasn't a problem in the regular season. And by the way, speaking of that receiving core, if Quentin Johnson can step up, listen, we know that's been the drops. You talk about CeeDee Lamb having a bad case of the drops against Philadelphia. That was generally speaking kind of a one game, one-off. That was the exception, not the rule for a receiver as great as CeeDee Lamb. Quentin Johnson, he has had a bad case of the drops. He has been infected by the drops over the course of his brief career thus far in the NFL with the LA Chargers. Really good, separated consistently, great in the red zone. We know what Ladd McConkey brings to the table. He was excellent. Tight end play was good. If this can be sustainable, I have the Chargers as a playoff team coming in, even with the Rashawn Slater injury. At the bare minimum, I need to see Justin Herbert ball out in a playoff game. Not even win a playoff game. Could you ball out in a playoff game? Could you, in a game that absolutely matters, your team has to have it, can you be the best player on the field? Can I look at Justin Herbert after a Chargers win or loss and say, he gave us every single opportunity that we could possibly have to win the football game? Because in his two playoff games against Jacksonville and against the Houston Texans, he has not done that. That's the thing. All the talent, all the measurables, all the numbers, by the way, all the production. Nothing to show for it. So if this is a precursor, playing the champs, a team that you had lost 7 games in a row. This is the Chargers' first win of the Chiefs in 4 years. And you, as great as Mahomes was, you outplayed Mahomes against a great KC defense. If this is what we're going to see from you moving forward, in the biggest games, against the best teams, and the best quarterbacks, and the best coaches, okay, now we can have conversations. Because I've always said, last few years, it has been a clear, no question about it, big four of quarterbacks. In the order I have it, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow. Burrow wasn't very good yesterday, but Burrow has absolutely earned the right after what he did last year to be in that 4. Jalen Hurts, love him, not quite there yet. Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, not quite yet, among others. But if he can have a great statistical season, clearly the receiving core is there. We know Jim Harbaugh loves to run the football. Okay, then we can see something that, we can see that Justin Herbert that we usually see in the regular season in the big games late in the season and in the playoffs. And so kudos to him because he was nothing short of brilliant against Kansas City on Friday night. On the Kansas City side, there has to be a little bit of concern because, third play of the game, like the Chiefs' receiving situation early on is just dire every single year, it seems like. Third play of the game, Travis Kelce, just plows into Xavier Worthy's shoulder. It's dislocated. He's out for the rest of the game. So the Chiefs came in with no Rashee Rice, but they had Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce. Not the player he once was, but he's certainly still an excellent tight end in the NFL. And you have Hollywood Brown. It's like, oh, and by the way, the kid, Tyquan Thornton? Made some big plays at the top. Maybe he can be a deep ball threat for Patrick Mahomes. All these guys, and you build your game plan in all likelihood around Xavier Worthy, knowing the Chargers have a great run defense. They're not going to get it going with Pacheco. And third play from scrimmage, he's gone. And there goes your game plan. And Andy Reid and Mahomes are having to adjust on the fly against a great defense in LA. Andy Reid did announce today that the injury to Worthy is day-to-day and not week-to-week. That's great news. I still don't really know if he's going to play against Philadelphia on Sunday. That feels like a really tough ask. Now, got hurt on Friday. That's 9 days in between games. We'll see. I'm skeptical, but we'll see. I think they said he's going to wear a pad on his shoulder. Can he take hits on Sunday, 9 days after the injury? We'll see. Only time will tell. These medical professionals are great, so we'll see what happens with that. But for the time being, for the first time in a while, really since 2022, Patrick Mahomes kind of going to have to put on the Superman cape. Now, he did in the playoffs in 2023 when he was basically flawless. He threw one pick the whole playoffs, was insanely efficient, clutch, everything. But if you go back to 2023, the Chiefs receiving core led the NFL in drops. I mean, we can remember them. Remember, Kadarius Toney drops the pass. Brian Branch goes the other way with the pick six, and the Lions win on opening night. I remember that game very well. Chiefs lost by a point. Marquez Valdez-Scantling with the devastating drop that could have won the game against Philly on a Monday nighter. Like, the drops were just, I mean, Mahomes was getting frustrated. The Chiefs had a bunch of drops in that game against Buffalo. That was the game where Mahomes was just irate on the sideline with the call. It didn't go well. They still found a way to win the Super Bowl because Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's Andy Reid. But it was they had to compensate for a lot of limitations on the outside. Last year, Rashee Rice, we drafted this kid Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. And Hollywood Brown gets hurt in training camp, doesn't come back till late in the season, not fully himself. And Rashee Rice blows out his ACL in the fourth game of the season, ironically against the Chargers. And it's like, okay, we're just down to Xavier Worthy and older Travis Kelce, and that's about it. So now, if you're Kansas City, you got to be much better defensively. I was really, really shocked. The Chargers have a good O-line, but not as good, obviously, without Rashawn Slater. I was shocked at the lack of pressure that Kansas City got. Chris Jones, obviously, we know who he is. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. But George Karlaftis, like all these guys were not able to get to Herbert. Some of that's due to Herbert's mobility. Some of that's due to a great Chargers O-line. But you would think that with the familiarity of these teams, that Steve Spagnuolo would be able to scheme up. We know Spags with his blitzes are just legendary, even going back to his Giants days. But you would think they'd be able to get more pressure on Herbert than they were able to get. You better get pressure on Jalen Hurts as quick as he gets the ball out, or Philadelphia's going to carve you up. So the defense has got to be better for Kansas City, and Patrick Mahomes is kind of going to have to be Superman for the next few games. You do still have Travis Kelce. Hollywood Brown showed signs. The kid Tyquan Thornton caught a long ball. Like, you saw that. If you're a Chiefs fan, you're like, hey, the big plays are back. Kelce caught a long touchdown. You've got some stuff there. The play Mahomes made on fourth down was just, it was a break in the secondary, but falling out of bounds, throwing across your body. The play Mahomes made where he is literally falling on the ground. It reminded you of the play against Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl, side-arming it. The guy is an all-time talent. And again, that's another game. Kind of like with Jordan Love, with Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts. Do not look at the box score. Watch the game. Under pressure, Mahomes was using his legs. He was trucking into Chargers players. Like, I almost felt like watching that game, because the injury to Xavier Worthy, because the defense was playing and struggling against the Chargers, you could almost sense the way Patrick was playing. He played like it was a playoff game. He was taking hits. He was using his legs. There was almost like a bit of anger. Like, you got to be kidding me. We can't stay healthy at receiver. The defense isn't backing me up. I'm just going to have to be amazing. And Mahomes was. Listen, I think Kansas City in the long run is going to be fine. That's going to be, how good is that game against Philadelphia in Arrowhead next week? The Eagles are probably, or at least they should be, without Jalen Carter. He should absolutely be suspended at the very least for that game, if not two. So he's going to be, or should be, out. In all likelihood, we got to see how the week progresses. Xavier Worthy is probably out for the Chiefs. And so now you're down to Hollywood Brown and older Travis Kelce, and now your defense is going to have to step up against Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. So both teams are kind of dealing with their own ways with some struggles. Differences, Philly was able to survive with a win against a division rival. Chiefs weren't. But I would not, folks are kind of dancing early on the Chiefs' grave. Oh, the AFC West, in some of it's in joking fashion, obviously, but the Chiefs are 0-1 and the other AFC West teams are 1-0. If there's two guys I trust to turn this puppy around, it's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. They're going to be just fine, but Patrick is going to have to kind of put on the Superman cape. My man Ty Reddington is in the comments on X. He says, yo, what's up? Shout out to Ty Reddington here at the Grid Network. Listen, one of the many Dallas sports fans that, safe to say, has had a really rough 2025. Basically, the two best athletes in the city of Dallas have gotten dealt in a span of 6.5, 7 months. That is tough. Also, some news. This isn't breaking news quite, but the Vikings will be without their standout offensive tackle, Christian Darrisaw, for tonight's game in Chicago. And I think Schefter reported also that Jalen Johnson, the star corner, Jalen Johnson isn't active for this game. He's the Bears all-pro corner. So both teams week one are already dealing with some losses. Jalen Johnson is probably the best player of the Bears defense. Christian Darrisaw is the superstar on what's a really good Vikings offensive line. I'll predict that game at the end of the show. Before we go to break, and my prep for this segment has kind of been derailed a little bit by some of the news that we've gotten over the past hour with the San Francisco 49ers. So first of all, it means that win against Seattle was all the more gigantic. Like, that is... It's weird to call week one a must win that was kind of a must-win for San Francisco, especially based on how the game played out and based on the after effects of what's happened to the Niners roster since then. So they go into Seattle, tough divisional game. Jake Moody, the kicker, is just awful, missing some absolute chip shots, missed 2 easy field goals. Shanahan is livid on the sideline. He gave his kicker a vote of confidence, which you're supposed to do as a coach after the game, but Shanahan was not feeling it. The offense for San Francisco is like, you gotta be kidding me. We're Kittle's hurt. Trent Williams isn't healthy. Juwan Jennings is hurt. Brandon Ayuk is not on the field. Like, you gotta be. Brock Purdy's throwing 2 ugly interceptions, as we find out now. He's not healthy. Make a kick, dude. Listen, my most unpopular take on this show. Maybe like, oh man, I feel bad for the kicker. I don't feel bad for the kicker. Kicker don't have to memorize plays. Kicker doesn't have to go against some of the greatest athletes in the world. Kicker doesn't have to get beat up every single play. Kicker's going to make kicks. Not saying it's easy. I'm saying you have one job. Do your job, as Bill Belichick said. Jake Moody, hitch kicks, bro. What are we doing? I would not be shocked if the Niners change kickers shortly. Maybe not this week, but next week if Moody struggles going back to last season continue. But I must say, and credit where it is due, like we said with Aaron Rodgers early in the show, I was, especially in the context now, and I knew the Niners were obviously hurt, but now it looks like they're going to have some guys out for a while, including him potentially. I was pretty impressed with Brock Purdy yesterday against the Seattle Seahawks. Again, this has been the theme of today's show and Friday's show. Watch the game, don't watch the box score. So you look at Brock Purdy, 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, passer rating of 92, like good numbers. Purdy was better than that would indicate. And the QBR of 80, 0 to 100 kind of indicates that. Yesterday, you kind of got the best and the worst of Brock Purdy. He is, going back to the start of last season, it feels like he's kind of developed into a little bit of a gunslinger. Remember he had that quote in training camp last year where he said, I've been the quarterback that I've been the last couple of years since being the starter in San Francisco, but I want to be like Tom Brady. I want to rip people's hearts out. And I remember saying that thinking, oh, Brock, you can't. You're not good enough to do that yet, dude. Like, don't. And Purdy had a kind of an average year last year. Passer rating was fine, but in some of the biggest games, he struggled. Late in fourth quarters, he was dreadful in some of those games against Arizona, against Miami, and Detroit. He was not good in those. So he's become a little bit of a gunslinger. And both picks that he threw, the first one, I don't know if he didn't see the guy on the left side. He thinks he has a receiver open, and the guy just steps in, makes a play. It looks like he's reading Purdy's eyes. He knows Purdy's going to go where he's going with the football. I don't know if Purdy didn't see him. Purdy has some size limitations. Maybe that's what it was, but it was an ugly pick. The second one, he throws into double coverage. It's like, bro, what did you see there? It's kind of like what I talked about earlier with some of the Josh Allen WTF throws. That was a WTF throw. Like, what did you see on that play that made you think that was going to work if you're Brock Purdy? With that being said, though, that's the worst of Brock Purdy. The best of Brock Purdy made the throw of the game to Ricky Pearsall on the left sideline. That was huge. The fact that he got help from Christian McCaffrey, who had who had over 100 yards in this game. And McCaffrey was really good in this game, but Ayuk's gone. Jennings is hurt. Kittle's gone early in the game. Trent Williams isn't healthy. Your kicker's missing kicks. Like, that is, again, fair is fair. That is what great quarterbacks, or at least franchise quarterbacks, are made out of. Man, it's the NFL. The margins of victory are that thin. Stuff's not going to go your way. How do you respond? Seattle was playing great defensively. You threw 2 ugly picks. Kicker's mixing kicks. Kittle's hurt. Ayuk's hurt. Jennings is hurt. Trent Williams isn't healthy. And he found a way late to win the game. Now, even the last throw, I have to admit, watching this game live, the last throw to the kid, the tight end, Jake Tongas, who came in. He was like a blocking tight end. He makes the biggest catch of the game. Even on that 3rd and goal, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I love that throw by Brock. He kind of forced it into a double team. Reek Woolen took a terrible angle to make the play. Tongas makes a great catch, and the Niners win on that touchdown. But even there, I'm like, oh, Brock, what are you doing? Credit where it's due. It got completed, right? It wasn't a pick. Brock Purdy didn't finish with 1 touchdown, 3 picks, and a 13-10 loss. But huge. You cannot overstate how big of a win this was for San Francisco. Because now with the injury news, Kittle's out multiple weeks, according to Schefter. Purdy may not even play this week with a toe and a shoulder injury. Like, this has always been the biggest knock for me on Shanahan, who I think is an offensive wizard. I mean, with how he designs running games, all of it is because they play. We saw that with the injuries of Debo and McCaffrey over the years, because of the physical brand of football that San Francisco plays. Boy, it really takes a toll on these guys physically, and it's hard to go over the course of a long 17-game season, if you're good enough to make the playoffs, and have a healthy roster. Like, that's why that loss to the Chiefs in 2023 was so devastating. Not just how the game played out, but the fact that, I mean, they lost Dre Greenlaw in the Super Bowl. Hufanga was hurt, but generally speaking, the Niners were pretty much healthy. The fact that they were able to maintain their health over the course of the season, and they still came up short. It's like, boy, is that going to happen ever again? Especially with those guys? Well, it's not going to happen with those guys because some of those players aren't on the team anymore. That was a pretty darn impressive win by San Francisco. And you give Brock Purdy a lot of credit. I've knocked him on the show for how he's played against, how he's played when trailing in the fourth quarter without his superstars. Can't knock him for that yesterday. He was great. Credit to where it's due. Again, the Vegas line is reflecting this. The line a few hours ago when I did the Bryson Carver show, which is every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern to noon, the Niners were favored by 5.5 against New Orleans next week. They're now favored by 4.5. My guess is that line, if Purdy is out this week, will probably come down to about 3.5, maybe as low as 3. But yeah, that is a gigantic win for the Niners. If they lose that game to Seattle, I think their season is over. I absolutely think that. Kittle's gone multiple weeks. Who knows what Purdy's health is? You know, the big thing for folks who believed in the 49ers this year, and I was not one of them. I had them going 9-8, missing the playoffs. Was, hey, easiest schedule in the NFL in a decade. I don't know. Their schedule coming up doesn't look that easy to me. So the Saints on the road, the Saints, I think, are the worst team in football. Although Carolina gave them the run for their money yesterday. We'll see what happens with them. But Arizona at home, that's not an easy game by any stretch. Cardinals have a great defense. Marvin Harrison, Kyler Murray, McBride, that is not an easy game in the division. Jaguars, tell you right now, Jacksonville's good. That's not an easy game. At the Rams, self-explanatory. At Tampa Bay, Bucks are really good. Could have easily beaten the Niners last year. Falcons can score. At Houston, a great defense. You know, like the schedule coming up for San Francisco is nothing to laugh at. The end of the schedule, end of season, based on how it looks now, won't be as bad. Maybe they can compile some wins and jump some teams in the wild card mix. But that is a season-saving win yesterday. And it's crazy to say that in week 1, but I don't think in this case it is. Huge win for the Niners against the Seattle Seahawks. Be back in just 1 minute to talk about the rest of the games in the National Football League and what was amazing week 1 across the sport yesterday. Go into the recaps for those games. And, of course, at the end, predict what's going to be a great NFC North matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. 2 first-round quarterbacks from the 2024 class. 2 great coaching staffs. Cannot wait for it. Be back in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving It Up Live. Before I get into my Week 1 NFL recap, just wanted to promote this once again. Every Monday from 10 a.m. Eastern to noon, you can listen to the Bryson Carver Show live on 89.5 The Edge. You can listen via the TuneIn app. We dealt with some technical difficulties with that this morning. I'm not sure what was going on. Even I was trying to see if the audio was working through my phone. The audio was working fine in the studio and where the radio was being played. But as far as being able to listen on the app, it was doing some weird stuff. It wasn't working. So hopefully we'll be able to have that ironed out by next show. We may have a show Friday. We will certainly, without question, have a show on Monday, every Monday from 10 a.m. Eastern to noon. Obviously, a ton of NFL. We're in the final few weeks of the Major League Baseball season, so some big games coming up down the stretch. My Red Sox, huge win yesterday, kind of able to save face from a sweep against the Diamondbacks over the weekend. Let's sweep not the Oakland Athletics. The Athletics, they're currently just the Athletics. They play in Sacramento right now. But Red Sox in the wild card chase, still in the division hunt, right? Still could gain on Toronto. The Yankees are in the midst of that. So that's going to be a fun chase to the finish line. So you can check all that out on the Bryson Carver Show. And of course, a ton of football, a lot of college football, more so on that show than on this show, which we try and cover when we can, because I do love the sport. Speaking of college football, every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, check out the Saturday morning tailgate on the Grid Network, on YouTube, on X. We're going to try and get this next show on IG. Myself, Tim Barnard, and Arthur Hurst will give you a recap of the previous week in college football. Our top 25 will give you takes on our own individual teams. Myself with the Vol View, Arthur Hurst on Buckeyes Breakfast, and boy, a segment I cannot wait for, Tim Barnard with Gator City. Tim is going to go nuclear on his Florida Gators this coming week. I have no doubts about that. So you'll definitely want to tune in once again, the Saturday morning tailgate. That is going to be every Saturday morning to get you started on your college football Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Grid Network. Very, very excited. Fun show. You might as well go and start since Patrick Brown brings us up in the comments. The Miami Dolphins made Danny Pennies look like a Pro Bowl quarterback was comical. Listen, he was called Daniel Dimes with the Giants. I'm not entirely sure why, because he wasn't all that accurate. That nickname never made sense to me, but whatever. But listen, the Colts fans have a new nickname for Daniel Jones, Indiana Jones, because he was nothing short of sensational. Fun fact, and this is a real stat, Daniel Jones in the Colts 33-8 win over the Dolphins is the first quarterback to score on to lead an offense to score on every single possession in the game. That's never happened before, ever in NFL history. We'll have to fact check that, but based on the information I got, that's what it looks like. 33-8 was the final score. Daniel Jones was, passer rating of 115. He had 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 passing. He was awesome. Dolphins defense couldn't stop him. Some of that, let's be real, is the fact that the Miami Dolphins defense is atrocious. And we talked about this during training camp, during preseason, that, okay, the reports coming out of Dolphins joint practices with the Lions, they're not physical. They don't like getting hit. Like, Mike McDaniel, to me, is, if you had to bet today who the first coach to get fired this season is, it is him. It feels like the reports, it sounds like he's lost the locker room. Tyreek Hill's been asking out of Miami passively or, just straight up, even at the last game of the season last year against the Jets. Tyreek is not going to be a Dolphin when the season is over. He's not. Said that before the year. He will get traded before it's all said and done. But, Tua was bad. Threw some ugly interceptions. Just a rough day at the office. Who do the Dolphins have next week? They got the Patriots. Here's the thing, and we'll get to New England's game in just a second. Here's the good news for Miami. Even going back to the prime Tom Brady era, for whatever reason, they cannot win in Miami. I don't know if it's a climate difference. Listen, I didn't live in Miami, but I've lived in Florida. The humidity is different. It's when you travel to Florida, man, not to Florida, man. I mean, like, you get what I'm saying. I never encountered Florida man while I was down there. But the point is, it's like when you drive down there or you drive around and you open your car door, the humidity like hits you in the face. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. So maybe that's what it is for New England. They're used to playing even in September with some at least at the very least brisk or early fall conditions. And maybe it's the nightlife. I don't know. But yeah, the Patriots do struggle to play in Miami. So that's good news for the Dolphins. Speaking of the Patriots, definitely want to see a better performance than what we got yesterday against the Vegas Raiders, who won 22-13. Geno Smith was excellent. Brock Bowers over 100 yards receiving. And listen, what we saw from the Raiders running game, from Ashton Jeanty, who only had 38 yards rushing on 2 yards per attempt. That was kind of the reason I picked the Patriots. I thought with the investments that they made in the defensive line, I thought they would hold Ashton Jeanty in check. Geno Smith would be forced to throw a lot. Well, he was forced to throw a lot. He had 34 attempts, but he was accurate, right? He had a deep ball to what's the guy's name? Not a Thornton from Tennessee. Trey Tucker had the deep ball to Trey Tucker on the right sideline early on. Again, Brock Bowers, who, can we say today, Kittle's dealing with injuries. Kelsey's getting older. Can we say Brock Bowers is the best tight end in the National Football League? I think you can absolutely make that case after what he did last year with atrocious quarterback play with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Well, now Geno Smith, who I've never been crazy high on, but Geno Smith's better than those guys, goes without saying. Bowers could end up having an even bigger 2025 season now that he has competence at the quarterback position. So good win for the Raiders. Was not impressed by New England. The O-line didn't hold up well. Receivers couldn't separate at times. Drake May was a little erratic. Like you saw some of the bad signs that we saw last year from the Patriots offense. The good news is I trust Mike Vrabel. I trust Josh McDaniels as an OC, at least. Maybe not as a head coach, but as an OC. They'll get the ship righted sooner rather than later. I still think the Patriots are going to have a pretty good season. What other game? Cardinals over the Saints. The one off to a rough start with this segment. Not this segment, but the If I Were a Betting Man segment. Again, week one, a little rusty. Week one is the ultimate guess week. But I had a rough If I Were a Betting Man last season. I'm going to bounce back in 2025. I have no doubts about it, but only 1-2 last week. So tough stuff. But the Cardinals did win. They were the one team that did cover. Barely. I took them -6.5. They won 20-13 over the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome on Sunday. So Cardinals offense looked great in the first half. Kyler was good. Marvin Harrison. They ran the football effectively. Second half, the Saints defense, did a good job. They had a chance to win it. New Orleans did at the end. Spencer Rattler, second to last play, threw a ball on the money that got dropped. And so, listen, the Saints, I still think they're the worst team in football. I 1 week is not going to make me change my mind on that. They are 0-1 after all. But New Orleans is bad. Listen, Arizona's frisky. They invested on the defensive side of the ball. Jonathan Gannon is a very smart defensive coach, going back to his days, obviously, as the DC in Philadelphia. Listen, Kyler's a good quarterback. Kyler can be productive any given Sunday. And again, as I said in the preseason, I didn't have them making the playoffs because the NFC is kind of loaded, but I could absolutely see Arizona. We could go into week 16, week 17, even week 18 and be like, man, if the Cardinals win 2 of their last 3 games, they control their fate. They could sneak in the playoffs because they're really well-rounded on the defensive side of the ball, good up front, and the running game solid. Like, they are built in the trenches. And if Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, by the way, another great tight end, we're talking about Brock Bowers earlier, if they can build a consistent rhythm offensively, watch out for the Arizona Cardinals to be kind of an interesting team in 2025. What else do we have? Commanders, that was my upset of the week. And I'm going to admit, the Giants held up their end of the bargain. 21-6 was the final. Washington over the Giants. It was so bad offensively for New York. Brian Dable yesterday would not commit to Russell Wilson starting in week 2. Now today he did. I will say this, because the Giants go to Dallas next week, and the Cowboys got like the ultimate, sounds terrible to say in the NFL, but a moral victory. You can argue in some ways they kind of outplayed Philadelphia. If CeeDee Lamb makes a catch or 2 or 5, they probably win that game. Dallas comes in with a lot of momentum. Again, this, just as a preview, this will probably be on If I Were a Bet Man this week, because Dak Prescott has not lost to the New York Giants since Barack Obama was president. And yes, that is a real stat. Dak owns the Giants. If Russell Wilson struggles early, if the Giants against the Commanders do not have a good secondary, they don't. And Malik Neighbors was kind of in his feelings a little bit. Russell wasn't accurate with the ball. The Giants O-line, for what it's worth, did struggle to hold up. Russell was under pressure a lot. Russell, like Aaron Rodgers, older quarterbacks, can't move as well as they used to. If Russell struggles in the first half, I've said this all preseason based on how the kid played, I think we could see Jackson Dart in the third quarter on Sunday, based not just on how he played in the preseason, but the fact that Giants traded into the first round to get a guy they hope is going to be their franchise quarterback, and the fact that Brian Dable, I think it's kind of unfair because I think he's a great coach who's been saddled with terrible quarterback play and a terrible GM, but fair or unfair, he's on the hot seat. Russell Wilson isn't going to say Brian Dable's job. Jackson Dart could. Jackson Dart could with Malik Neighbors, with Tyrone Tracy, who again kind of had a rough day at the office, but the Giants have talent. We know the talent they have on their defensive line. They held up for as long as they could, but the Commanders ended up winning 21-6. Deebo Samuel had a big day at the office, but Commanders are a playoff team. I have no doubts about that. The Giants they have talent up front. Russell's just limited, and the Giants O-line certainly underdelivered in week 1. Who did not underdeliver is my sleeper team in the AFC, baby, the Jacksonville Jaguars, 26-10 over the Panthers. Bryce Young. Oh, buddy, man, I want so bad. Defending you in 2023 was not easy, but I could do it because the Carolina Panthers had the worst roster in the league in 2023. I could do the same early in 2024. And at the end of 2024, hey, you came on at the end of the year. 10 touchdowns, no picks down the stretch. Bryce was great. He had a big game against Atlanta. He almost beat the Chiefs. He almost beat the Eagles. Bryce showed some promise. We know about the physical limitations, but the offensive line in Carolina improved. They drafted the kid, excuse me, a Ted McMillan out of Arizona. Like, okay, Chuba Hubbard, Carolina's got a nice team here. And Bryce was bad. Like, if you look at some of these second, third level analytics that Warren Sharp has come out with today, Bryce was probably the worst quarterback over the weekend. And it's a bummer. Now, some of that you give credit to the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, which I said would be sneaky good in part because they added Travis Hunter. In part, new coaching staff, Liam Cohen. And I gave him love early in the show when talking about the Lions' red zone struggles. Scheming guys open or scheming lanes, for your backs that's what separates the good offensive minds from the great ones. And Liam Cohen, I don't know if I'll go so far as to call him great. He's very, very good. We saw what he did in Tampa last year. The reverse to Brian Thomas Jr., wide open running lane. Trevor Lawrence, again, the numbers aren't going to scream that he played amazing. Early on, he was efficient, threw the football very well, threw the touchdown pass to Brian Thomas Jr. early. So I thought Trevor was really solid in this game yesterday. And I think this is going to be the bounce back year that Jags fans hope for. He's got two good receivers in Brian Thomas Jr. and in Travis Hunter. You've got a good offensive coach in Liam Cohen. You've got two good backs in Bigsby, ETN. This is a big time opportunity, obviously, for him to step up. Hunter Long, by the way, was who caught that touchdown for the Jags. It was not Brian Thomas Jr. I apologize. So Jacksonville wins that one 26-10. They are going to be my surprise team in the AFC playoff picture. A team that I had sneaking into the playoffs, and I predicted coming in, I didn't think they'd look that impressive, although I didn't think they'd look this bad offensively, was the Cincinnati Bengals. 17-16 over the Browns. Listen, I thought Cleveland plus 5.5. I almost had that, and if I were a bet man, and I wish I did looking back, but listen, we know the Browns have a great defense. We know Myles Garrett is an absolute game wrecker if there ever was one. Cincinnati's defensive play is getting overrated a little bit today, or even a lot today. Hey, they only gave up 16 points. Yeah, the Browns moved the ball at will. The problem is their kicker couldn't hit a kick. I mean, you saw Shedeur Sanders is trying to encourage the poor guy in the sideline. Kicker missed a kick. Sometimes that's how the NFL works. Thank God my Steelers have Chris Boswell, right? Thank God the Bills have Matt Prater. Sometimes games come down to that. But the fact of the matter is, they moved the ball effectively. That's not the biggest concern if you're a Bengals fan. The biggest concern, if you're a Bengals fan, and I've been banging on this table since Joe Burrow got drafted to this disastrously run franchise, they cannot protect him. Again, you see 113 yards passing. The Bengals had, this is a real stat, 7 net yards of offense in the second half. That's unthinkable for Carolina or the Saints or the Giants, throw out a bad team. For the Bengals with Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, some of that falls on him, and some of that is he got drafted to a team that had a bad O-line. They've tried to address the O-line in the draft. They can't develop the O-line, or they haven't selected the right guys. Whatever the case may be, they can't protect this dude. And Joe Burrow, who is not Jared Goff in that he can't move at all. Like Jared Goff's a statue in the pocket. Burrow can move a little bit. He doesn't necessarily want to. He's a timing thrower. He is this generation's Drew Brees. Deadly accurate, but needs to be in a rhythm. That Bengals O-line ain't going to give him the opportunity to do that. And if you look at the Bengals schedule coming up, you've got Jacksonville who can get to the quarterback. You've got at the Vikings who can definitely get to the quarterback. At Denver who can get to the quarterback. Lions have Aiden Hutchinson. Packers have Micah Parsons. Steelers have TJ Watt. Jets got a good dude line. Like they're in bad shape up front moving forward. And so, listen, they stole a win in Cleveland. Congratulations. I had the Bengals getting in the playoffs just on the back of greatness from Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. But I don't trust this defense moving forward. I did not think they play well despite giving up 16 because of the missed kicks, because of how the Browns moved the football. I mean, that O-line in Cincinnati is a disaster. Joe Burrow's running for his life the second he snaps the football. It's a mess. That's why I thought Browns plus 5.5 was a pretty obvious bet. A great game yesterday in Atlanta. Buccaneers beating the Falcons 23-20. Both quarterbacks were exceptional late. My man, Michael Penix Jr., y'all know I loved him out of Washington, with the I don't want to say Air Jordan because it wasn't like a leap, so to speak, but stretching the ball across the goal line. And Penix in this game was really solid, really efficient. I had a QBR 0 to 100 of 83, which feels indicative of his play. Didn't get a ton of help from Bijan Robinson in the running game at all. I think Bijan might have had like 7 yards or something in the first half, 24 yards for the game. Bijan did nothing. Again, that's the mark of a great quarterback. You know, if your running game doesn't have it working, can you be able to deliver through the air? And by the way, Penix did late, not just the touchdown where he stretches over the goal line when the Bucs defender's trying to pull him away, but Bucs score. Baker does Baker things. His clutch goes right down the field. Touchdown to Mika Igbukwe. Baker, touchdown maker, does it again. But Atlanta gets the ball back, missed extra point, so they can go tie the game. They get in field goal range, and Younghoe Koo misses it. Missed it, by the way, pretty badly, and the Buccaneers end up walking out with the win. Look, I loved Igbukwe out of Ohio State. I thought he was a really good pick for Tampa, and I think this Bucs offense, listen, divisional games are always close, especially it's week 1. You haven't gotten everything necessarily rounded up and in rhythm. I think this Bucs offense is going to be absolutely lethal all season long. They got a big test coming up next week against the Houston Texans and what is a great defense. Speaking of Houston, the Rams beat them 14-9. That was, I don't do over-unders on if I were a bet man. If I did, this absolutely would have been on the list. 43.5, hammer the under, and it turns out both teams barely got over 20 combined points in this game. Both great defenses. Stafford was coming off the back injury. I got to say, given the struggles with Stafford's back, I thought he actually played pretty well. I thought he was efficient. I thought we know his connection with Puka Nacua is excellent. Puka was dealing with some injuries. Puka still had 130 yards receiving, which the kid is just an incredible talent. But I thought Stafford's time with Devontae Adams was solid. Still some things need to work out, but was solid. Tight end play for the Rams was good. As for the Texans, the issues I had with this team coming in, the reason I had them missing the playoffs showed themselves here. Now, keep in mind, they're playing a great Rams defensive line, Jared Verse, Byron Young, Go Vols, all those guys, but we knew the Texans' O-line was bad. They gave up their left tackle to the Commanders, which made no earthly sense to me. I get that there were some character issues, showed up late. That's a left tackle. That's probably the second most important position on a football team to quarterback. Keep your guy. The receiving core is decimated. Stephon Diggs gone. Tank Dell's not there. They traded John Mechie, so it's Nico Collins and a bunch of guys. And Joe Mixon is on IR. Like, this team is going to struggle offensively a lot early in the season, and I think they're going to get off to too slow of a start to be able to dig themselves out of the hole and make the playoffs. But listen, the Rams kind of went ugly. This is how they won a lot of games in the second half of the season. I think they went through like a 3 or 4 game stretch where they didn't break 20. I don't think that'll necessarily manifest itself early. They got the Titans, who actually have a pretty good defense. Next week, Philadelphia. So definitely not an easy road ahead for the Rams, but a good win for them. Speaking of teams that didn't look good offensively, this last game we'll talk about before we predict the game tonight. Denver Broncos looked atrocious on the opposite side of the ball. Atrocious. The timing was bad. It felt like Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton weren't always on the same page. The running game at times it was solid. You have J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey. Like, they ran the ball fine. Denver has a really good offensive line, but just penalties were killing them. So many times in that game, I'm like, okay, they're going to put away Tennessee, and okay, a penalty just killed him. And Sean Payton, who's a great coach, the heck you do? Listen, I'll be honest. Part of my saltiness with Sean Payton for going for it late is because if you make a field goal in the mile high altitude, by the way, if you make a field goal, then I would have went 2-1 on if I were a bet man, but alas, it did not come to pass. But even still, absent that, you make a field goal, the game's over. If you miss it, okay, your defense is amazing. And Cam Ward, again, like I said, it was going to be a lot for Cam Ward to handle. Cam was actually fine given the circumstances. Calvin Ridley had the CeeDee Lamb bad case of the drops. Really struggled in that game to hold in some pretty routine throws from Cam. But Tennessee had multiple opportunities to win that game. Tennessee's defense that was solid. The kid they have, Sweat, who made the play on Bo Nix on one of the early fourth downs, one of the second half fourth downs, really good. Jeffrey Simmons is good in the D-line. So again, Tennessee is not a playoff team. They're not a playoff caliber team, but like I said, they would double their wins. They're my pick in the NFL to go, from 3 wins to 6. Cam showed some stuff against a great Broncos defense and a tough place to play. So listen, tough test for them next week against the Rams. And that game is in Nashville, so that helps them a lot. But but impressed with some of the stuff I saw from Tennessee. And for Denver, a lot of things they got to clean up offensively. That was not an impressive showing at all. All right, that's our week 1 recap. We've got a game tonight between the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears, 2 division rivals. Let's get the background music. All right. Bears tonight, Monday Night Football opener. NFL did a good job scheduling this one because you've got 2 quarterbacks from the 2024 draft class. Caleb Williams out of USC, J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. The Vikings on the road are a 1.5 favorite in this game. Now, both teams are missing key starters. Vikings are missing Christian Darrisaw, and by the way, they're also missing Harrison Smith due to an illness. And then for the Chicago Bears, Jalen Johnson, their all-pro corner, is out as well. The coaching matchup in this one, if you love like these coach chess match games, I'm sure Aikman's going to hammer on the broadcast tonight. Like this is your game to watch. It is Ben Johnson versus Brian Flores. It is Kevin O'Connell versus Dennis Allen. These are 4 elite minds at their side of the ball. O'Connell and Ben Johnson offensively, and then Flores and Dennis Allen defensively. This is going to be a fun one. The divisional familiarity, all of it. So here's some really good news if you're a Bears fan. Again, Ben Johnson was the OC in Detroit, so different personnel. Goff is obviously a very different quarterback than Caleb. We talked about that during the preseason. But against Brian Flores' defenses in 4 games, the Lions scored 30, 30, 31, 31. So they, for whatever reason, maybe again, some of it is obviously the Lions' personnel offensively. They were stacked last season, particularly up front. And we know what Detroit brings to the table in terms of their skill position group. But Ben was able to find the hole, so to speak, in Minnesota's defense. Can he do that tonight? Well, again, as I've said, I need to see by around Halloween, early November, I think we're going to start to see that progression from Caleb into looking like that number 1 pick that we believe that he would be. At least I thought, and the Bears certainly thought that he would be out of USC. Is your offensive line, you improved drastically in the offseason, most notably getting Joe Thuney. You've got a receiving core that consists of Ramadunze and DJ Moore. You've got the kid Luther Burden out of Ole Miss, who I really like. You've got obviously Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan. Like, you've got Cole Kmet. You've got guys that you can get the football to that can consistently separate with Ben Johnson calling the plays. Like, I like some of the things I saw in preseason from this group. Going against Brian Flores is a tough challenge. Listen, I think if there's one guy that I worry about getting overwhelmed tonight, he seemed like a good kid, but it's JJ McCarthy. I'm sorry. Let's see what he does tonight. Dennis Allen's a great defensive coach. Bears were a solid defense a year ago. This is a big-time test for him. Now, he still does have Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, and TJ Hawkinson, even though Jordan Addison is out with a suspension. But he's still got the horses. O'Connell's a great coach. I still think he's too limited of a player. I don't love his arm strength. He wasn't asked to throw a lot at the University of Michigan. That was a Jim Harbaugh, run first team, Blake Corum, the whole bit. All of those things are going to kind of go by the wayside. He's going to be asked to throw a little bit tonight in the second half. This is going to be a close game, divisional game. I've got the Bears in a close one, +1.5, and to win this one outright, 24-19 over the Minnesota Vikings. Chicago 24, Vikings 19. I had the Bears, the playoff team, coming in. I have Minnesota as the greatest 4th place team of all time because this NFC North is just loaded. Chicago 24, Minnesota 19, and the Bears win the game tonight. And Caleb Williams, you see, it could be a little clunky early again. So much of this week 1 action that we see year after year, the defenses just do have an advantage. Last night's game notwithstanding, and the Jets-Steelers game, oddly, notwithstanding, is that offense is so much of a timing thing, and it's a delicate dance, and the offensive line has to protect the quarterback long enough, and the receivers have to be on the right page at the right time, and the quarterback has to read the defense effectively. There's so much that goes into having an effective offense in the league. Same can be said about defense, but at its heart, defense is blow whatever the offense has up. And so I think we're going to get a great game tonight, a little bit of a defensive battle, but Caleb and the Bears come up with the W at the end, and Ben Johnson wins his debut with the Chicago Bears. I love the guy. I think he's going to be a great head coach. With that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on X, Instagram, and Facebook. We'll have reaction to the game tonight. We'll have predictions for a great Thursday night game between the Commanders and the Packers. We got Bryson's Best 10, Carving Up the Context. Wednesdays are some of my favorite shows to do, especially during the football season, so you're not going to want to miss that. Subscribe, hit that big red subscribe button down there. We're trying to grow the channel exponentially as much as we can. So if you have not subscribed on YouTube, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button down there. We're going to be pumping out a ton of content over the next few days and over the course of this football season. So be on the lookout for that. YouTube shorts, YouTube videos, the whole bit. We'll be active, obviously, on IG and TikTok. You got all my social media handles down there. So check that stuff out. Also, very important, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. If you want to listen to my show or to our other content creator shows, check us out at the Grid Network. We've got some amazing content creators, where we're at. So check out the shows. Check out Saturday Morning Tailgate, Carving It Up, Boston Sports Summit, all the shows we got going on at the Grid. We will see you guys on Wednesday. Cannot wait for the game tonight. Football is back, and I could not be happier for what we're going to see over the next 5 months. So have a great week, everybody. We'll see y'all on Wednesday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Do me good, Caleb. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.